What if the first thing humans ever intentionally made wasn't a tool, a weapon, or a shelter, but a drink? In 2018, archaeologist Li Liu and her team at Stanford University published findings from Raqefet Cave in northern Israel. Inside 3 stone mortars carved into the cave floor, mortars that had been sitting there for roughly 13,000 years, they found chemical residues from fermented grain, starch granules, calcium oxalate, the compound that forms inside brewing vessels. The Natufian people who made these mortars were hunter-gatherers. No settled villages, no domesticated crops, no pottery, and yet they were brewing beer. That date matters. Agriculture in the Fertile Crescent didn't get going until around 11,000 years ago, 2,000 years after the Raqefet beer. Fermented drinks appeared before farming, not as a product of civilization, but possibly as one of the pressures that pushed civilization to exist at all. Your ancestors didn't need anyone to teach them that fermented fruit did something unusual. Overripe figs pooling in a rock hollow, a honeycomb that got wet and sat in warm air, crushed fruit left too long in a clay depression. Natural fermentation happens whether or not anyone arranges it. Every animal that eats fruit encounters alcohol. Chimpanzees in West Africa seek out fermenting palm sap. Elephants return to fermented marula fruit. The sensation that results: warmth, reduced fear, altered perception, isn't a human invention. It's just a property of ripe fruit in a warm climate. But there's a gap between noticing the effect and deliberately recreating it. 13,000 years ago, someone in a limestone cave in Israel decided to make it on purpose, with enough precision to carve dedicated mortars, process grain, and repeat the process across multiple vessels. That's not an accident. That's a technology. Archaeochemist Patrick McGovern at the University of Pennsylvania has spent his career tracking this technology backward through ancient residues. His team analyses the chemical fingerprint left behind in clay and stone and found fermented beverages at Jiahu in China dating to 9,000 years ago. A mixture of rice, honey, wild grapes, and hawthorn fruit. Not wine, not beer exactly, but something in between, gathered from multiple sources and combined deliberately. The Neolithic people who made it weren't experimenting randomly. They understood what they were building. The question anthropologist Brian Hayden at Simon Fraser University spent years asking is why humans went to the trouble. The standard assumption was that farming came first. People settled, grew grain, had surplus, and eventually figured out that grain plus water plus time equals alcohol. Hayden reversed this. His argument, built on decades of cross-cultural fieldwork, is that prestige feasting drove the domestication of plants. Emerging leaders needed something to offer, something that created social bonds, cemented alliances, and brought people back. Fermented drinks were that something. The desire to produce alcohol on a reliable schedule, Hayden argued, may be one of the reasons humans started farming grain in the first place. The most striking physical evidence for this comes not from a kitchen site, but from Göbekli Tepe, in what is now southeastern Turkey. Built roughly 11,600 years ago, it is the oldest known large-scale stone monument on Earth. Massive carved T-shaped pillars arranged in circular enclosures, created by people who had not yet settled into permanent villages. German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who led excavations there until his death in 2014, identified stone troughs at the site large enough to hold hundreds of litres of liquid. Residue analysis found evidence consistent with fermented grain. A monument this large built this far beyond anything subsistence alone would require, appears to have been organised at least partly around communal drinking. That overturns the standard sequence. The usual model went farming first, then surplus, then social complexity, then monuments. Göbekli Tepe has no surrounding settlement. The people who built it walked there or camped nearby. The ceremony came before the city. The fermented drink, it now appears, came before the field of grain that supplied it. You still carry the mechanism that made all of this possible. The enzyme that breaks down alcohol in your body, alcohol dehydrogenase, is shared across all primates. Your liver didn't evolve for cocktails. It evolved for eating fallen, overripe fruit off the forest floor in a warm climate. The gene enabling this appears to have been selected for strongly around 10 million years ago, roughly when great apes began spending more time on the ground. Your body can process alcohol because your ancestors needed to extract calories from fruit in various states of rot without dying from it. The first drink was almost certainly not intentional. It was probably a waterhole full of fermenting fruit on a hot afternoon, or a fig left too long in a clay bowl. But the step from noticing that effect to deliberately recreating it, carving mortars, selecting grain, repeating the process, to building a stone monument in the hills of Turkey, partly organised around the result. That sequence says something specific about what humans will go to elaborate lengths to produce. Not just calories, not just warmth. Something that changed the terms of being in a group together. That next drink you have is the end of a chain that runs back at least 13,000 years to a cave in Israel, and probably much further, to a forest floor somewhere, and an ancestor who picked up something overripe and noticed what happened next.